Welcome back to Real Jew News. We're broadcasting live here in Tel Aviv. I'm here with Moshe and Dr. Goldenstein.
Oy
Introduce
vey.
yourselves.
I guess I'm a
Moshi
doctor.
Goyam.
My mom
All right.
just kept bugging me till I got a doctorate, alright?
Alright, so we're back with the second part of the Nationalist Academy. If you want to hear our book reviews in the first part, please check it out. In this, we are going to just talk about some general philosophic and political concepts. They may or may not be related to political events that have happened, but just anything that interests us and is relevant to the topic of conversation. Now, my book review was the 26 points of the Falangist doctrine of fascist Spain. However, I have up right now the 88 precepts, and I've been reviewing them, and here's the thing, I don't actually agree with all of them, and I think my main disagreements with that can be summarized in two particular points. Now, I hope you both don't mind if I read out these two particular points and we can talk about them.
Of
Go
course.
ahead.
Go right ahead.
Okay, the first point I disagree with that sums up a part of it is number 11. Truth requires little explanation, therefore beware of verbose doctrines. The great principles are revealed in brevity. Now, I personally just find this to be false. I think that a lot of great doctrines, like fascism, National Socialism, etc., even
European philosophy.
I know. I think it's very complex. Even if you take the idea of physics is a natural law, and this the 88 precepts highly praises natural law. Natural law in itself, it is a very complex doctrine, as it will put it. I think this particular point, it's just simply not true. And in the context of this, it's talking about the doctrines of morals, of in particular Christian morals. It's talking about if these doctrines, these theological doctrines, are overly complex, then they're just simply not true. Now, do you all agree with this?
I'm always skeptical of people saying that things can be simplified in any way, because usually they can't, because there's usually a lot to unpack there. Though simplification does make it easier to converse these ideas with people who may
Yeah,
not
the
be...
one exception to this, I think it's an Albert Einstein quote. Yes, Einstein, but his particular quote on this is, "If you cannot explain something simply, then you don't truly understand that." I can take that as a pretty, as a mostly true statement. However, the idea that if something can't be explained simply, then it just simply isn't true, I just find that to be overtly false.
I agree with you to an extent. I think I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one a little bit.
Sure.
So
Please
humor
do.
me a bit. So who was the originator of this document? Was it actually Hitler, or was it somebody else?
No, David Lane.
David Lane? Okay, so I'm going to kind of say what I think he means, and if you can tell me if I'm totally off base with this or something. But actually, what I think he's addressing in particular is that specifically, especially amongst Marxist philosophy and doctrine and documents and literature and so forth, I think there's a very noticeable trend towards what I would call deliberate obfuscation. Deliberately using very long, flowery, kind of just lengthy tomes on this thing. And the idea here is basically that if the common man can't be bothered to read and understand your program, then he won't know what it really is. So when you tell him that it's about class struggle and elevating the workers and so forth, well, that all sounds good and fine. Whatever you put on your pamphlets to lie to people basically can be easily understood. But what your actual teachings are is far too esoteric and sort of has this kind of learning curve to it. So I would agree with both of you in that, not necessarily just because something is true does that mean that it can't be complex or difficult to fully explain or understand. It's just this idea, I think, that like oftentimes people try to use complicated language to hide their true intentions. Yes. And rather than just like, if somebody is being honest and straightforward, they will only use language that is as complicated as actually necessary in order to explain their, what they're getting at.
Right. And
So,
especially from the historical context, you have a good point, because they did very much seem like snake charmers of the working class. They would kind of blow this like Marxist flute about featherweights that he talks about for pages in Das Kapital. And then
Das Kapital is so fucking just dull and long, and
it really enlightened me personally.
I would actually say that criticism is unfounded, because Marxism actually does give it oversimplifies the explanation, in particular of history. It says, what is history? It is the
class struggle.
It's explained just by class struggle. It's just
materialism.
dialect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
And that's a very simple thing, but if you're actually analyzing history and saying, what does history mean, it's actually almost approaching infinitely complex. There's so many different contributing factors to it. This was the economical means, which was supported by this doctrinal means, which was supported by this church, and etc., etc.
Right.
Yes, if any given historian tells you that you can explain all of history through a single lens, you should probably just immediately be skeptical of him. He probably has some sort of ideological motivation for suggesting that.
So you mean it's not all evil white people?
Yeah, or
God, what am I going to do now?
Mug, gun, germs, and steel. But
Manifest Destiny is explained by class struggle.
yes, but
The Native Americans were the bourgeoisie owning the means of land production.
But yeah, I
Dude,
think
you can break his whole
you were
theory by
partially
pointing one
right.
counterexample out.
Like,
China.
I think that Marxism is shapeshifty by nature, so it becomes like almost childishly simplistic when it needs to be, and it becomes like just unfathomably unnecessarily complex when it is trying to dance around accusations that are hurled at it. Like, you should imagine Marxism, if you could personify it in your head, as a sort of this
Jewish lawyer.
Atheist Islam.
Well, yes, both of those true to a certain extent. Like, imagine a person who, when they're manipulating the common folk, they inwardly look down on them greatly. They think of them as nothing but of livestock, more or less, and they speak to them in this this very soft, simplistic, with small words, voice that soothes them and urges them that they're there, only to take care of them. And then when
6
they
million goy.
Yes, and then when they go to their secret commie meeting afterwards, they speak in such long, lengthy tracts about these large words that no one understands, so that when, like, if you gave somebody a piece of communist literature and asked them to read, like, they either wouldn't be fucking interested or wouldn't understand it. Like, I don't know. It's just they have. It's almost kind of like at the height of the Middle Ages, when the Catholic Church had the Bible only in Latin, and like 90% of the population was illiterate anyways, so they could just sort of do whatever they wanted. Like, that's sort of how Marxists are to their servants, if you will. They're like their little fucking brainwashed slaves that they just get to fight their battles for them.
Like, they clearly don't believe that the caste system should be organized by economics, but they clearly act as if they believe that some kind of caste system exists naturally within the human population.
What, like now or something?
Well, just like the way that, look at the way the Soviet Union was organized. You have a cadre and a near oligarchy of people who work in the halls of power and dictate the lives and starvation and various other plights of all the people that live within the Soviet Union, because they know what's best for them.
Right, and it's like, well, how did they come to that position of power? How did they earn that?
Right, or
it's
what
like,
happens to any society that localizes decision making so intensely? They always seem to break down. Weird.
But yeah, I think that one is sort of, I agree with you both in principle. I was not attempting to counter signal you, just to suggest an alternate explanation, if you will.
Well, no,
But
that's good.
Of course.
We
You
need
can go ahead
that.
and proceed.
All right, and my second point, which probably a lot more people will disagree with me on, but I think I have a pretty nuanced way of explaining it, is point number 18. There exists no such thing as rights or privileges under the laws of nature. The deer being stalked by a hungry lion has no right to life. However, he may purchase life by obedience to nature ordained by instincts for vigilance and flight. Similarly, men have no rights to life, liberty, or happiness. These circumstances may be purchased by oneself, by one's family, by one's tribe, or by one's ancestors, but they are nonetheless purchases and are not rights. Furthermore, the value of these purchases can only be maintained through vigilance and obedience to natural law.
Oof.
Hmm.
I mean, that does characterize European history really well.
So
And
where exactly is your disagreement with the quote in order to clarify, I guess, what we're discussing?
my disagreement is, unlike most of, I guess, the traditional right and the alt-right, I don't subscribe to the theory of positive rights. I do subscribe to the theory of inherent rights. Now, here's the nuance that I put with it. I believe all persons have inherent rights. Now, there's two particular points to caveat this and put it into a general context. Now, here's the thing. I don't equivocate humans with person. Now, I explain this
Oy
in
vey,
my
Goyim.
I now here's the thing. In my article where I think it's titled Classical Liberalism and the Alt-Right, I kind of touch upon this, but a human's life has no more value than that of an animal's, with the exception that he is the only animal so far that can elevate himself to personhood status. And this idea of personhood is through self-actualization, you actually, no longer are just simple animal who you're not an animal who just reacts just to instinct, just to hedonistic pleasures of pain bad and pleasure good, that you can actually act in these higher principles of duty and self-sacrifice and objective goodness and everything like that. And thus, not every single human, you're not a person, you don't have these inherent rights just because you are a human with the same genetic structure. A person who is born, with like a severe mental retardation, he's just a human. He's not a person. He's a meat machine that can, react based on instinct and just pleasure and pain. He's not a self-actualized person yet. And this goes also with fetuses too, but however, with the thing, again, I would like to bring up that humans do have a greater value than animals because they showed this ability to elevate themselves to personhood status. The second point that I would like to bring up for the context of this is that a government does not need to respect and a government doesn't need to respect the rights of every single person. It doesn't need to, enforce the rights of people not within its own jurisdiction. The government stems from the nation to organize and protect itself, not everyone else. Whenever it interacts with any other group, it's doing so out of its own personal interest. So therefore,
It should be.
yeah, it should be. That's the basic idea behind our whole movement and everything like that. But it's this idea that just because another group, even if they are persons, not just humans, and have inherent rights, the government doesn't have to enforce them. They don't have to uphold them. They don't have to do any of these other things. And also arguing that these other people have inherent rights too, therefore we should invite them into the country is also just it's also not an argument, because just because another person within your own country is a person doesn't mean they have the right to come into your own house or be a part of organizations that the other people don't want, everything like that. So I think with these two particular contexts, I think we can support the idea of inherent rights for people, not necessarily humans. I think humans are subject to natural law, as he says, but humans, because they have access to these higher principles of duty, responsibility, and such, they do have these rights of if you, for example, I love the way that the Constitution does this, is for every single right you gain, you have a responsibility. Now, I don't think these are arbitrary ties. I think they are, from these responsibilities you gain access to these particular rights of personhood. So from the duty of if your country is in need, you're drafted into the military. From that responsibility that you consent to be drafted should the need arise, gives you the right to voice your opinion on how that military should act. Gives you the right, in a very democratic sense, to cast a vote on how that military should be acting. Now, it doesn't have to be a vote. It could be just merely voicing your concern or campaigning against it and such. But it's this idea of responsibility and personhood creating rights. Now, what do you all think of that? Do you subscribe to the positivist view of rights, that the only, in quotes, real rights are the ones given by society, and outside of society there are no such thing as rights?
I think there are rights. I just think that we live in a really good example of what happens when none of the responsibilities they're associated with are followed through on.
I would agree with
and that's
you.
very true.
I would agree with that and suggest that, like, I don't know. I would suggest that rights must be earned first and foremost.
Starship Troopers posting.
And that once you do that, that sort of removes that, like, people just having this basic sense of entitlement without contributing anything whatsoever. To be honest with you, I would say that I naturally tend to ascribe to more of the idea of the positive rights, and that's just because I tend to think of things more along the lines of the social contract and so forth. Like, I do think that, just like objectively, if you look at nature, there is no sense of a right that exists in nature. That's just something we came up with. It's like, it's a good idea. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing, like, bad about saying that people have rights. That's, it's not like, oh, fucking how terrible, you said these people have rights. Like, no, I mean, it's good in principle. It's just that, like the example says, like, animals don't experience anything like rights because it's something that we just kind of came up with. So I think that you can believe in rights and you can believe that they're good, but you probably should do so, like, recognizing that, like, yeah, we just fucking made that up to make sure that people aren't treated bad.
Well, it's what it seems to me to be, and I do tend to agree with you, but what it seems to me to be is humans live in, and have lived for a long time, in a state of, like, absolute chaos where anything can happen. Like, chaos theory prevails in the universe. And in order to cope with that, being that we're, entities that wish to survive and reproduce, we create a structure around ourselves so that we can understand and see the world in a way that makes it more comfortable for us. Unfortunately, we've kind of reached a point at which that comfort has exceeded our connection to reality whatsoever. And I think that's where a lot of, like, the jarring, like, oh my god, the world is just coming to the end. It's the end, dude. Oh my god. The globalists are going to all eat us and make us drink fluoride. Is because we've become so disconnected that when we are reminded of reality, it is very jarring to us. Rights would function better, and I hate to sound like Ted Kaczynski here, but rights would function better if there were less things preventing us from seeing the nasty side of the way that reality works and why we partake in the society in the first place. So badass trips for everybody.
Think that, I don't know. I mean, I think even that, like, there's enough bad shit that goes on that people should see this. It's just people have become so kind of dumbed down and numb, and tragedy has just become our kind of entertainment almost.
Oy vey goy, you could be killed tomorrow by a terrorist, so go ahead, screw her without a condom.
Yeah, basically, like, tragedy, instead of like giving people recognition of the gravitas of life and how important it is that we do things the right way and try to make sure that we lessen these things as much as possible, it's just led people to this sort of degenerate nihilism where it's like, whoa, nothing really matters anyways because fucking...
It's the lack of personal responsibility. They think that the society or the government will deal with these particular problems if they just, kind of throw their trust in with them, rather than personally going and doing something.
I agree with you. I'm not... I'll, like, counter-signal you without doing it, really. I agree with you that the fundamental problem of our age is that people refuse to take responsibility for their lives, for their world, for their action, rights for their nation, etc.
I even go farther than the libertarian perspective and think that people should take responsibility even for their own family and such. Like
Oh, yeah,
you have a
absolutely.
duty to uphold your family's name and legacy. If your
Yes.
family have been metalworkers for 10 generations, then yes, if you have some kind of inclination to be a wood carver or something, that you should be. But if you have, an equal choice between wood carving and metalworking, then it's more honorful and more
Right.
duty bound to take up that family tradition and
See,
uphold that.
so the thing is, I fundamentally agree with you about that. That like most of our problems arise from people who, and I guess Tommy said it kind of too. That like most of our problems arise from people not wanting to fucking actually deal with reality. That's where it really. That's
They would
you
do
know,
it
That's where the
if they
that's
were
where the
exposed
cookie,
to it.
That's where the cookie really fucking crumbles. But where I kind of depart from you a little bit, because I think you align a little bit more along the traditional, almost conservative or libertarian lines, where you're like, well, if people would just do that. People won't just fucking do that. They will not.
No.
I'm sorry. There's not gonna come some like magical day where like all of the fucking brainwashed Goya mud slaves just wake up and are like, holy shit, I've been fucking up my whole life all this time. Like, we have to make them. We have to make them do it. We must force them.
In all likelihood, what will really
Once
happen...
we force them, after a certain amount of time, maybe they'll start just doing it on their own. But unless we do, there's, like, this shit isn't going to end well.
All right, I'm going to go off on a little tirade here because that's a really interesting point. But I do think there is something to this idea that, like, groups of people feel the impact of tragedy very heavily upon themselves for very large periods of time. For instance, the post-World War II era, oh my God, we still hear about that shit. Something
Well.
like that is almost necessary to snap a group out of degeneracy.
Yeah.
Look at the French
actually,
Revolution and what it did to, like, the upper crust
Yeah,
of French
shit.
society permanently thereafter. Even people who rise into high French society now are different than they would have been had that not happened. We are shaped by the experiences of those who came before us. And it seems like at this point we're on an inevitable course to something very nasty happening around us that will force people to either choose you're going to take responsibility for yourself or you're going to die. Unfortunately. At least that's the way I see it going. Maybe I'm wrong, and God, I hope I am. Though, normies, come on, snap out of it already, for fuck's sake.
We've been waiting on you so long.
Like, you can't survive without a McDonald's near you. You can't go a day without eating, without kvetching endlessly. For God's sakes.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, my natural inclination is to agree with you. I don't like the idea of the fucking nanny state. The just, like, make sure people are fucking alright, everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, nobody's diverging at all. Like, I think that's fundamentally harmful at its essence. I just think that the path that people are on right now is so much exponentially more harmful than, like, a government telling people to do positive things. I mean,
It's not so much that I'm against force. It's that I think it's more, they'll be more inclined to go along with it and act in accordance with it rather than compliance if you create a system around them that encourages and makes them excel when they engage in these practices rather than forcing them to particularly do it. Like
Whoa,
the way
that
I
sounds
kind
like
of
good leadership.
yeah, I know, but
Whoa.
the way I kind of conceive of it, instead of say, cracking down on, let me think, on international banking. Let's just put that as thing. Instead of invest,
Boy,
yeah, I know.
I wanna
Instead of
crack down on international banking.
yeah, but
Disavow.
so instead of companies taking loans from international banks and putting their stuff in offshore accounts, I think you could encourage that system by basically saying all companies who aren't based in the U.S. and don't have the vast majority of their assets in the U.S. are going to be subject to tariff laws. Now, this isn't outright banning people from, buying property or whatever over in China or what have you. However, they're going to be severely disadvantaged and they're going to be, heavily punished by doing this. Another kind of thing back down at the individual level is is degeneracy with drug use. Now, you could just outright say ban all the drugs, no more alcohol, no more marijuana. If we find you doing that shit,
No more
you're
alcohol shit, nigga.
no, your head's going on the ground. Instead, I think a way to curb that is to create a system in which it's just. I think peer pressure is just an utilized force on our side.
Agreed.
It's actually extremely powerful.
I
because
think
one
if we
thing-
can create a culture that says, all right, if you drink just for maybe like the artistic experience of experiencing a new wine or something, but they should. But if we have a culture that actually treats drunkenness, even in private, as
Well,
just a
yes.
very shameful, just absolutely
Yes.
terrible thing, like the same as if you were found in public naked, if you had that, you wouldn't need a law discouraging public drunkenness. It would be
Yes.
absolutely more powerful than that.
And that's essentially how it is in a lot of European countries. If you might be referencing that, but if you didn't know, like for instance in Italy, like everyone fucking drinks wine. It's like a culturally universal thing. Their drinking age is 16 instead of 21, and like from the age of like 5 or 6, they're already given like little sips of table wine, just some like cheap $5 bottle red wine at the dinner table. So they just what ends up happening is that they grow up with this idea that this isn't some kind of forbidden fruit that they have to go fucking engage in as soon as they turn 21 and become drunken thoughts. And so they have this kind of cultural conception that drinking is fine. There's nothing wrong with drinking wine, but they have this sort of cultural norm, and I was told this by multiple Italian people when I lived there. This is not something I just like read somewhere or observed. Like it's a almost universal cultural conception that like drunkenness is considered extremely shameful. Like you said, even just like private, like oh you're in your own home and you're drunk, like they would say like well that person has had too much wine. Like so it is definitely possible to do something like
Well,
that.
and
It's not.
There's also like
Inconceivable.
a very kind of maybe sounds very off-putting, but there is a very rational reason to just let them overdose themselves, and that you don't have to deal with them anymore. If you let that segment of the population that's gonna go kill
Bring
itself
back
do it,
natural selection.
let them do it, and then the people that don't want to do that will find that out very quickly.
That-
Most people who have experimented with drugs have washed out of it extremely quickly. There's a reason for that, because they don't want to die. Their natural instincts take over, and they go, oh God, I never want to eat those mushrooms again. Very natural process. It does not help that we make it the forbidden fruit, and then let people like the hippies turn it into, oh, this counterculture that's going to ruin your fucking life and your mind. Instead, let people have the bad experience and then go, okay, that's fine. Just don't do that again. Or if you do something bad on it, you're going to jail like everyone else.
While that is
Yeah.
very tempting, I have to disagree with that suggestion. I'm not suggesting making it a forbidden fruit type thing, but just making
Right.
it like a matter. Just describe it as a matter
Personal
of
pride.
matter of course. Like
Right.
in schools, like instead of demonizing it and saying that like the drug dealers are evil and out to get you, just treat them like you would just I guess the way that schools treat like prostitutes, that they just say, "Oh, those dirty, shameful people." They're not so much that, "Oh, those evil, wicked sinners" or
Right.
anything like that. Not anymore. They're more just like, "Oh, those dirty people. You don't want to really go
You
around
don't
them."
want to mix in with that crowd. They don't make it sound cool by making it sound sinful.
Right.
They make it sound like just like an
It's just a
inglorious
shame.
lifestyle. It's like
Right.
they're not on the best path.
Well, and that's exactly what I mean. We should not have the government involved, is what I was getting at, but did not succinctly say. We should have the
Yes.
social aspect take that over, because they're more effective at it. If we've learned anything from the Puritan streak that runs across this country, it's that getting the government's hand in things doesn't usually make it better.
Now, the exception to this are things that are overtly just stupidly dangerous, like meth, bath salts, crack,
None
and
of
things
that,
like
fuck
that.
that.
But I mean, the very low-level stuff, such as like marijuana and ecstasy. From what I understand, with ecstasy, as long as you have a lot of water to drink on hand, there's no lasting side effects.
It's clinically
That's
about
what I've
as
heard
bad
as
for
well.
your brain as methamphetamines, except it does not ruin your dopamine receptors, so you don't notice it immediately.
So it is just as bad.
Yes, I would say if ecstasy should definitely be up there, especially with the ease that people fall into doing it a lot and then destroy their serotonin receptors and for years suffer crippling depression from that.
All right.
They become
I didn't.
social burdens really
Yep,
quickly.
I didn't know that. So thanks for updating me. But back onto the original point, I still have to think that there is such a thing as inherent rights, because my idea of inherent rights are characteristics of personhood that are just categorically a part of defining that said personhood. Like, if we go, I think the founding fathers got a lot of the inherent rights, right. For a good example to take is the Second Amendment. What's the Second Amendment really about? It's about self-defense. It's about being able to fight back, to enforce your will and everything like that. And I think positivists that aren't just complete nihilists have to concede that every single person, if they're being attacked, it does follow with natural law that they have
Well,
a
that's just,
right
yeah, that's
to
how
fight
nature
back.
works.
Right. If you're
Every
worthy of the
animal
right, you
tries
will
to
be
fight
tested.
back.
Exactly,
You know.
but this goes for other things too. If you're alone in natural law, unless something is otherwise some physical ailment or something, you have a right to believe whatever you want. You have a right to like a religious belief, whatever that like religious belief is, and such like that. Once you start acting upon that religious belief, that's a different thing. But in terms of believing in whatever ideology you want, speaking whatever you want, I mean, speak at your own risk in terms of a predator catching you. But in terms of the actual content of your speech, in natural law, there's nothing against the actual content of your speech. It's with personhood, I see it as not just being an animal anymore. It's a higher plane of existence. You have access to these transcendental virtues, and Evola would even advocate this. You have the right to. It's not a right, but you have the opportunity to experience a heroic death to achieve these higher planed goals, and to achieve those higher plane goals, you have these rights in order to achieve it.
We sound like we're a few innovations away from a certain German philosopher we were talking about earlier.
It sounds like Cole has more faith in humanity than I do. Is basically where the crux of our disagreement
It's not faith in
comes
humanity.
from.
Like I said, I don't consider humans to
It's
be
just-
inherently
I don't think
personhood.
personhood is very special, honestly. Like, I don't.
I do.
Well, I
Maybe
mean-
you just have a too general concept. I think for the most part, maybe like 20% of current living humans have achieved personhood.
Well, okay, there. You know what? Actually, now we're back on board. You've caught my attention again.
Right.
I think for the
it
course
was
of
the other day on
civility, I
Twitter
think
where
that
I said at least 20% of the current human population needs to be purged, and everyone thought that was shocking. And now you're saying only 20% is good enough to live. So,
well, no, I'm
know.
saying at least 20% have achieved personhood so far. It's not to say that the other 80% can't. It's just that they either just through their circumstances won't, or they haven't yet. I can't even say that the majority of people living through life have achieved personhood, but I would say that if we look at like the average life of all humans throughout history, I would say maybe like 40 or 35% achieve personhood before they die.
Right, with varying rates and various times. What we can say, and we can all probably agree on, is that personhood, whatever that is something that you have to earn.
It's something that, not that you have, earn is the wrong word, because
you achieve it.
it's an achievement. It's like
self-actualization.
it's having a heroic death. You don't earn a
Right.
heroic death, but you achieve it. It comes about not just through your own determination, but your determination to create the circumstances that allow your determination to achieve a
And it
heroic
also
death.
seems like inherently something maybe that permeates back into our culture. We are predisposed to this, like the mindset of the hero's journey, and like this need to like achieve in the world when it is extremely dangerous, and still to go out and face it. That seems to be a very salient characteristic of a certain group of people, which we are all a part of.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I like about the personhood concept that I have is that it adds another reason for society. What is the reason for society and government? To protect protect the group, to protect the tribe and everything like that. Alright, they're protected. Now what's the higher goal? It can't just be hedonistic materialism to acquire as much as possible. Alright, that is the will to power, to achieve influence. Okay, now once you have this power, what do you do with it? Then it becomes the next step. The greatest goal of that power is to help to help create a society in which the other people in your tribe can achieve this higher goal of personhood, of having power, of getting, being able to self-actualize.
The triumph of the will.
Yeah, and that's definitely part of it. And I like this idea of personhood because, funnily enough, it's just a quirk, but within Kant's philosophy, with the categorical imperative of objective morality, any creature that has kind of like the intellect intellect and the self-consciousness to act upon the categorical imperative does have the same inherent personhood rights. So that means that an alien species, if they come to Earth, if they're self-actualized, then yes, they still are applied to the same objective morality according to Kant, and likewise, kind of tangentially with this idea of personhood that I have, they could also become persons as well. And it's not just the concept of and that's what I really dislike, this idea of, you're a human, it has human rights. No, human rights aren't a thing. Inherent rights that are categorically part of being a person, I think that is a thing. Not human rights. It's not tied to a species. It's not even just circumstance, but just happenstance that right now the only species we know of that can achieve personhood is human.
Right. There is something unique about humanity that's beyond the fact that we're smart. There's something else about us that makes us rise above the things around us. Because we could have, in theory, been a smart group of apes that died very quickly. I mean, we see those tendencies within our own people. There must have been some section of people throughout history that was willing to push into very unpleasant circumstances because they had, high time preference? Is that a term of art that we're using today? Though while I'm speaking, I just want to point out, when we're talking about self-actualization, don't immediately go to cliche Maslow and his pyramid of BS and modern psychology. We could talk about all that some other time, but just understand that Kant is saying it with a very specific purpose, very specific meaning.
That's true, and for the most part, in the general case, the pyramid is right, but I don't like this idea. I think it's in the second to top tier. It's like the abolishment of racial bias. It's like fuck off.
What?
It's like fuck off.
I never
Or
saw
like
that.
the end result of this is that you're Sisyphus and it gets pushed back down the hill and you got to roll it all the way up again.
No, hold on. Let me look at this. I thought
the basic pyramid is okay, but I hadn't read into any of his other views, so I don't know if he's got some fucking cringy shit going on.
Psychology, dude.
Hold on. I'm pretty sure eliminating a racial bias was a part of the thing. Huh.
Are you serious? I thought the pyramid was just like the base needs, like food.
Here it is. The on the bottom part, it's psychological, which is breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion. The next level up is safety, security of body, of employment, of resources, of morality, of the family, of health, of property. Next level above that is love/belonging, family, friendship, sexual intimacy. Above that is esteem, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect by others. And on the very top of that is self-actualization. Morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem-solving, lack of prejudice, and acceptance of facts.
Lack of prejudice.
I know. It's just kind of like fuck off, dude. Just because I can see someone has different skull size doesn't mean I'm not self-actualized. Fuck off with that.
You mean as I've developed an understanding of the patterns, when I've reached this wisdom that has gotten me to the top of this pyramid, I should then give all of that up? No wonder I roll back down the other side of it.
Yeah,
I know, and that's what I find so
I would argue that the Ubermenschen ideal is much better than self-actualization, but
Right. Well, when you're framing it that way.
Term.
Well, with the Ubermensch, I think he does go through self-actualization. He distinguishes himself as an I. He distinguishes his need for power and to exert influence upon the world around him. He achieves this level of personal responsibility that he is responsible for creating his own destiny, not just the system and people around him.
Well, and what Nietzsche was really good at was framing things in a very catchy way. And a way that, like, sounds cool. You know, all these years later, we're still going, oh, yeah, the will to power, man, yeah. It just sounds good. Like, he had a way of framing his thoughts, which were oftentimes scattered and bizarre, in such a way that they were appealing to you.
Mm-hmm.
They were appealing to Germans, and then when Kaufman translated them, they were appealing to us as well, going into today.
Mm-hmm.
Despite, like, the numerous attempts at discrediting him, even just, like, the cultural trajectory that discredits a lot of his work, we still look at it and go, that sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're drawn to it. The Great Satan. Though, I actually like his work quite a bit, even though he was weird.
Yeah.
I personally like Evola a lot more. I don't like Nietzsche for this one particular characteristic, that he doesn't follow a very logic-based system of his philosophy. It's very much not even ridicule-based. It's just kind of like, oh, these truths are self-evident, so why don't you come mock them with me? I mean, his dismissal of all of Kant's philosophy is just, he calls it Tartuffery, and that's the end of that.
Right. And that he was clearly very good at the art of bants. He was very good at the art of bants. And he did it to literally every Western philosopher that came before him that he ever got a chance to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, very clearly, he was taking Socrates' method and running the Diogenes direction with it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, talk about some levels of Greek cuts there, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus fucking Christ.
And eventually, if I say all these big words, y'all gonna think I'm smart.
But what do you think about this this idea I have that once you achieve power through this will to power, once you achieve this like, well, in our case, white ethno-state society, that it then becomes the goal of the tribe, of the state, of others, not just to protect, but to help elevate the others in the tribe to personhood. It's not.
That's what makes every prophet a prophet. Is that desire after they obtain that extra knowledge, whatever it is. Buddha sits under the tree and drives himself crazy for 3 days. Then he gets up and he decides, I'm not just going to go live in the hills with this. I'm going to make the world a better place. At least to his mind at that time.
Mm-hmm. And not in a better place in the hedonistic sense. It's in a better place of elevating the other people to the same level.
Right. Understanding that the better place isn't that hedonism that they seem drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, I've actually consider that one of my personal goals in life, is to hopefully wake the 3 people who listen to my podcasts up.
We have more than that.
I know. We have great fans, all 10 of you. Awesome.
No, we have like 150 people who never come onto our Twitter.
Yeah.
Even though we implore them to give us feedback.
We have people listen to us from around the world, and yet I've never heard from any of them.
Do we have any non-white people listening to the podcast? Do we have like people living in like Somalia?
We have people who are in Japan, whether they are Americans in Japan or Japanese people. We still don't know because they won't talk to us. But they're out there.
Secretly, the Emperor is listening to us. He wills deep in his heart to restore the Empire.
He's like, these white guys have the right idea.
Color's right. Fuck these other Asians. Don't land mine.
Actually, it's funny because the first couple episodes we did do a couple segments where we talked about Japan and how fucking based they are sometimes, and that they're like implicitly ethnic, and their immigration policies make a lot of sense and so forth. We just kind of did a rundown of like what's good about Japan and Japanese culture, and then we talked about like why it was Europeans and not them or the Chinese who kind of explored and colonized the world, like the flaws with their society and culture, if you will. So it's funny because we discussed that early on, and like now we have these 10 people in Japan who listen to the show.
And if you guys are listening, I will say you guys got the best perspective on Western civilization. You saw it from the outside, and you knew how to copy the right aspects of it to work for you. Good job.
They're the best counterfeiters in the world.
Look across the sea of Japan at China. That's the wrong way to do it, and that is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, they're suffering now. Even their currency and shit is going to shit.
I love
Well,
that.
I mean-
I love that 4chan post that someone did. Maybe it wasn't even on like poll, but like int. But it was funny. It was talking about. It was basically ridiculing this idea that they're pushing now that Japan needs multiculturalism. It was like, oh, the birth rates are going down. That means we have to raise wages. What a nightmare. Oh, the old people are dying off. Now we don't have to pay as much in pensions. Oh, what a nightmare. And it just went through this whole list of things, just like, oh, the national population is getting smaller. That means people have to become closer and tight-knit communities. What a nightmare. And it just went through all these fucking hilarious and humorous points from a poster in Japan. And fucking hell, they're pushing multiculturalism in Japan. Fuck that. Fuck that. We tiny island. We full. No entry.
There's
Talk about a bear to poke.
fuck off. We're full.
Like, you saw what they
It's
did in
just like-
Nanking. Like, you really want to piss those people off? They go nuts.
How are these people? I don't know. They're seriously like, what country haven't we completely fucked up yet? Like every fucking country in the world has been ruined by globalism practically. It's ironically the whole fucking world has been ruined. But
Kim Jong-un smiles listening to this through a
Yeah.
Japanese VPN.
basically that's what he's doing. But they're like, man, what country haven't we fucking ruined yet? Japan looks pretty unruined. Let's ruin that shit. Shit looks.
Oh yeah,
fucking
and I
lit
forgot to
me.
mention that during my thing when I was reading up on phalangism and national syndicalism, I actually realized that Spain was kind of the North Korea of the Axis at the time. And to
Right.
explain this, I highly recommend, again, just look up on YouTube the Cleanest Race lecture. It's a great lecture by a guy who's talking about just North Korean politics, and there's a trend in North Korean politics that whatever the Chinese and the Asians around them are doing, they like to quickly snatch up and say, we have the best version of it. We have the better version, the true North Koreanist or Koreanist version of it. So when
We was
Confucianism
Asians.
so when Confucianism came about in China, they quickly snatched it up and they created their own brand of Confucianism, and they said, look at us, we are the most Confucian Asian society in the world, we're the best. Then after that, when, I think this happened a few other times, but another notable one was when Mao came along and wrote his, I forget what his books were called, what were they called? I think they were like the Mao Dialogues or something like that. But then in North Korean response, then came, oh, Mao is only the second best Asian communist. We have Junche Thought, which is the North Korean version of communism, and we have the best communism. And it's and it repeats this,
They got that Kang's mind.
Yep.
but it's not even like that saying we was kings. They don't admit that they're original. They just think that whatever they take into the society, they are the best at doing it. They are the best.
They got the Midas touch.
Yeah, and so I saw that when reading through the history, kind of the brief summary of the history of phalangism and national syndicalism. They kind of took fascism and they said, we are going to be the best fascists because we're not only fascists, but we also give the best to workers' rights, and we're also going to, and we're also going to restore the empire and influence Hispanic countries. Frickin' Spain having this obsession with Hispanics. But I mean, the Spanish influence was one of the
You
best
ever met any
influence
of
on
them?
them.
Every time I meet people who are clearly very Spanish, man, do they play the one-up game. Especially if they're from Argentina for some reason. I don't know what's up with that. If there's anyone out there that's Argentinian,
Argentinians
please-
are white.
Yeah, I mean, is it the Italian in you guys? You gotta always play one-upmanship with everybody? Like, what's going on with that?
Could be the
Say-
Spanish.
If we have any listeners out there, please get triggered and yell at me. I would love to hear from you.
Fuck you, man. You said shit about Argentinians on the last episode of the Woke. Fuck, I don't fucking Fuck off.
You let the Israelis come in and kill all those war heroes, you bastards.
They also let in the Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Whose team are you guys on? It's just like,
We just can't decide.
yeah, we'll let in the worst traitors in the world, and hey, you guys want to come in too? Yeah.
It's like from the Godzilla movie, let them fight. Invite both the Jews and the Nazis to live with you, then let them realize themselves who they are living with. Let them fight. Sitting there with the
Jesus
with the
Christ.
you all won't get the meme, but the from fucking why I even lost the meme in my head. I just had his name, but what is his name? Ikari from Doctor. I mean, yeah, the Doctor Ikari hands. If you Google it, you'll know it. But everyone who knows Evangelion will know the meme of the
Yes.
Doctor Ikari hands.
Yes.
Let them fight. Just watching the Jews and Nazis in their Argentinian villages, just looking down from above. Man, that's just such a hilarious. It's just a hilarious contrast, if you will. When Hispanics, when they can get nationalism right, they get it. They get it really darn right. They get Pinochet, and the Mexican Empire, and all these other things, and they
You got to
can.
give Perón a little credit. Even though he was a raging socialist, he did some things very right.
Yeah,
He's not
they can get
marrying
things
women.
right, but they can also just tend to get things just so wrong with their widespread, Marxism and socialism and all these other kinds of just crap ideologies.
They repeat it to this very day. I mean, one day it's, invest in Argentina, it's going to be the next world superpower. Then it blows up. Then it's invest in Brazil, it's going to be the world superpower. Because even if they speak Portuguese, they're basically Hispanics at this point. Let's face it. That's an experience of that region for some reason. And it repeats itself over and over in their history. They get something really nice and they drop it on the floor and break it. I don't know why, but it happens.
I don't know really what to think about
Yeah.
Brazil. I'm not sure if they could become with the right like leadership and ideology, if they could become a world superpower or not. On one hand, they have a lot of land and natural resources. However, in order to set up infrastructure for that, they need to, destroy all that natural resource and everything like that. It had to be a very, very careful infrastructure plan in order to try to maximize the benefits of setting up infrastructure and maximizing the amount of rainforest and resource producing areas that they do have.
I would even say that there's like another cultural issue that underlies that. Like, yeah, it's easy to say, hey, don't cut down the rainforest. But I think that as a nation, no offense to any of you Brazilians that might not be this way, but they seem to lack a certain will to achieve the result. They're willing to start, and they like to talk about it with everybody else. It's like the guy that likes to be on the football team so he can tell everyone how he's on the football team, but when push comes to shove, he's like, I don't want to get hit.
Mm-hmm. And that's
It
true.
seems like
and,
that's like the Brazilian model for government.
well, they
It's
have
like,
followed
okay.
they have followed through a few times. When they set
Right.
up the protectionist industry for their cars, and it definitely did
Right.
work. They set up their car industry very well.
Good job. Good job. You did that one well.
Good job,
Now,
Brazilians.
what happened to everything else?
But
Why did, when you get an influx of Americans in the late 1800s, did you just, like, push them all out? You don't think that would have been useful to have rich Americans live there? I don't know.
No, foreigners get out. Brazilians only.
Yeah, whatever that means these days. We're going to make everyone
What the fuck is a
multicultural,
Brazilian?
including the
Mhm.
people in the Amazon. Yeah, that'll work well.
Yeah, fucking the
That was some nutties.
the fucking Amazon village people who have like never seen any people from outside. Like a plane flies over and they think it's a
Mhm.
demon. Like, yeah, that's gonna go real fucking.
Please
well.
leave those people alone, for God's sakes. You know how much you hate
Just
the modern
fucking
world.
kill
Well, like the
them.
sen-
Don't bring them into it.
like the Sentinelese have with
Just
with
kill
India.
them.
Just kill
Yeah.
them, burn down the rainforest. But no, the
I don't see why we
Sentinelese
should
are
do
a
that.
very interesting case study. I mean, I like to bring them up because I'm like, it's not oppression that's holding these people back. You have to have a better explanation for this. They are not achieving, yet they literally have no outside and foreign influence, yet they haven't invented the wheel, and they've been there for 500 million years or so.
It seems like their
That almost
evolutionary
suggests
track
that
went
there's-
somewhere else.
Yeah, it seems like
They have
there's some
bows and
kind of
arrows,
genetic
that's about it.
explanation that contributes to that.
It sounds a lot like the Aborigines
Yeah, but
prior to
at
the
least
British colonies.
the Aborigines invented throwing return a stick.
That is very true.
Yeah, I mean that's actually kind of smart.
Uh-huh. They invented the returning
that
stick. The
smart.
Sentinelese
It's a
just
little
have bows and arrows. They haven't developed stick technology yet.
And they knew how to speak in a way about like dreams that really captivates British people.
I fucking love dingo Twitter and Australian shit posting. It is
Oh, it's amazing.
it's the fucking best.
It's objectively the best
And
part of the
when they
Yes.
talk about just the fucking abos, it's absolutely hilarious. It wasn't even a 4chan post. It was on some other forum, and someone was like, "The Aborigines invented a flying throwing weapon before anyone else. Can you imagine what it would have been like if they had been free of foreign influence and developed technology on their own path?" And Australians just like, "Yeah, then we have some fucking abos flying around on some throwing spinning sticks."
They had 40,000 years without anyone else there, living in an inhospitable place with poisonous animals. They really do a good job of keeping people out, unless they're Anglos
Yeah.
for some reason.
Actually, that's the funny thing about fucking dingo Twitter and like Australian alt-right is like, can you really blame them for not wanting to have fucking Muslims come into their country? Because all the animals that live there already try to kill you. So having exploding people come into your country doesn't sound like the best option to me either. But
You
I
thought
mean,
you were safe when you put your boots on and a spider didn't bite through your toenail.
Another-
Then you walk outside and get blown
they
up.
got fucking crocodiles.
Another
and shit.
classic
Like,
example of
really,
Aussie
you have
shit
some
posting
Aussies there.
that I distinctly remember. It was a thread a long time ago on B, and it was basically some inspired libertarian or ANCAP thing where he's just like, if I want to have a pit of snakes to kill trespassers on my property, why shouldn't I? And some Australian poster is like, what do you mean you're not allowed to have a pit of snakes? That comes mandatory with every Australian property.
It's just standard. You didn't get your pit of snakes. No, but they're fucking great. They're just like, oi, fucking house, fucking Johnson, fucking Aussies,
And
fucking country. Fucking
I know, and,
America."
and that's why, and that's what I always say, that each European
love that
ethnicity needs its own state. Fuck pan-Europeanism. The only countries,
Yeah.
No.
the only
Get
country,
out of here with that, Richard.
exactly, but
Richard's alright, but that's not so good.
exactly, but the
Yeah.
only countries that can have white nationalism, and they should be their own distinct countries. It's not like we can merge. It's America, Canada, Australia, and the other two countries that are basically dead now, but could also apply, were Rhodesia and South Africa. Now, I think Australia
rest in
is the
peace.
closest to. I think Australia is the closest to us. I guess brotherhood is the right word. We're the closest, like, genetically,
Right.
and the closest, like, culturally. Canada, even though they're our northern neighbors, they have so much French and fuck them, fuck
Right.
Trudeau and everything like that.
We inherited whatever shameless aspects got pushed
Right.
out of the British Isles.
I mean, for whatever fucking
If Americans
reason,
kill us, we
and
win.
this is
Yeah.
right. I got this impression when I was in the military as well for some fucking reason. Basically, at least in the military side of things, I can't speak so much about the like just broader cultural things, I guess. But from what I gather, the Australians are kind of like our younger kid brother who follows us around and thinks that everything we do is so cool. At least in the military, they're like, "Whoa, America's got like 11 aircraft carriers and nukes and shit. That's so fucking cool, man."
But for some reason, they took Canada and Europe's healthcare system. Fucking
Yeah.
Centrelink, cunt.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
they cucked really hard on guns too.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. To the Australians
But-
that we know listen to us. 'cause you
Australia
guys
is the
do.
place where they need guns the most. I mean, fucking emus will kill you,
Yeah, they got
kangaroos
fucking
can
creatures.
kill you. I mean, there's dingoes.
You need them a lot more than me in California. I could beat up a leftist, but you can't beat up a kangaroo.
You can't beat up a fucking crocodile.
Unless it's got your dog.
I mean, in
Apparently
fucking
you can't.
America,
Zero
there's
anything
like
there,
only
but-
3 big animals that can like really kill you and that pose a significant threat: bears, crocodiles / alligators, and like cougars. Pretty much
Yeah.
anything else, they will either try to avoid you, or they're just poisonous shit that you don't need a gun to handle. But I mean, with fucking Australians, they have so many aggressive fucking animals, like, kangaroos, crocodiles. They have fucking these sharp toes on the end of their feet that'll gut you in an instant. Same with emus.
No, yeah, I
Emus
know
can like
that.
kick their
Just the
feet through.
similarity of the word to like kangs or
Kang.
I'm just imagining a bunch of like nigger kangaroos.
I love those
Yeah,
pictures of
nigga.
Dingo Twitter when they post the buff kangaroos that look like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just they literally just sit there and they're just resting posed is like them flexing their arms and like so buffed up. It's ridiculous looking.
It's like raccoons in America. We've got those damn things. I don't know what your guys' experiences with raccoons are, but they remind me very much of going to certain neighborhoods around me, where it's like, you'll respect me if I stay on the other side of the street, but the minute I come near you, you are going to kick my ass. So I'm just going to smile and walk away. Though I will say, cougars, if they live around humans and have lived around humans for a long time, they'll just avoid you. They don't really want to fight with you. They just will eat things around you if you leave it outside.
Mm-hmm. My dad had an experience with raccoon that was, I don't know, maybe it was the Ubermensch of raccoons, but anyways, it was getting into our bird seeds. My dad went outside with a metal spatula and he smacked it in the butt as hard as he could. He said it felt like he hit like just a solid mass of rubber, and the raccoon just kind of lazily turned around like it didn't care, asking like, "Yeah, what do you want?"
I think that's what commands respect
want,
from me the
nigga?
most about those creatures is they really don't give a damn about you. Like a cougar will be like, okay, what the hell is this thing? Let me stay back for a minute before I pounce on it and eat it.
Mm-hmm.
But a raccoon's just kind of like, get the fuck out of here. What are you doing? You're not going to do anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
That scares me a lot more than anything that just looks scary. I don't know. That's me personally.
Bears also
Yeah,
have that
just
kind
don't
of
give a
fear
fuck.
to them. They're food oriented. They're very food driven, and they're willing to push you out of the way. But at the same time, if you surprise them in such a way, then that's when you frighten them. You can't really frighten them by
Yeah, no,
showing
that's
force,
true.
by
I think-
by being a big, huge, strong, muscular guy. They won't care about that. But if you jump out in a way or do something very surprising, then that'll spook them.
Right.
Right, if you just act fucking crazy, a bear will look at you like, what is wrong with this nigga?"
Exactly.
You know, like, they just don't get it. So, I mean, like, yeah, if you try to look all big and shit, they're probably like, okay. But if you're just like, blah, 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 a bear would probably just look at you like, okay, I'm gonna leave now. Please don't be weird.
Fucking hell, maybe that's
Bears
a
are closer to
natural
humans.
instinct in humans that we fear, insane unpredictableness more than predictable
More than strength.
predictable, not even maliciousness, but predictable acts of authoritarian exertion.
Right. Or even
Yeah.
just like social. If you live in a multicultural paradise like me, like even just the way that society becomes organized naturally in that jungle that emerges, like you can predict what everyone's gonna do. Just if you've known kind of that world long enough, you're just like, okay, they don't want to fuck with me. These young kids though, they might, and that's what scares me. Not these older dudes sitting on a porch staring at me. What the hell are they gonna do? They don't want to go to jail either.
Did you all see that RT report that came out? I think it was either today or yesterday, where basically they were interviewing a Somali community in, I think, like either Michigan or Minnesota, one of the two MI
course.
states, and they're basically like, would you rather live in under U.S. law or Sharia law? And they were like, yeah, we would prefer Sharia. And they were like, would you rather live here or in Somalia? And they're like, I would like to live in Somalia. It's just like, eyes popping out. Then why the fuck are you here?
I mean, on one hand, like, you may long for home, even though you know home's a crappy place. I've been through that too. Or it may be something more along the lines of just like, well, why don't we make this our place?
Mhm.
Why not? Who's going to stop us? Clearly not the people who live here already.
And I think this is a characteristic of all groups of people, that when they go to a place for like economic means or anything like that, and this is the case for like most immigration, they go to a place for a hedonistically or materialistically better life and such like that. But when they go there, they try to make where they go as much like the old place as possible, even if it's contradictory to this better life that they do. So if a Muslim comes and they, set up shop in America, despite them being economically better off, even if they're aware that they came to be economically better off, they'll still advocate like Sharia law. They'll still advocate Muslim societies and even the old Muslim economy instead of this better economy. And we can see this throughout all cultures and all peoples. I mean, even if it's
You can
just
see this within the U.S.
even if it's like within like regional things, if a Texan person moves to New York because of a job opportunity, they'll still tell all these New Yorkers how better it was in Texas. It just kind
Right,
of
just like
inherent.
when the Californian moves to Texas, he tells them how evil they all are and how they need to be more like California.
Mhm.
'Cause who doesn't love like skyrocketing crime rates? It's fun, Goy.
Fucking California. The land is great, but the people are terrible.
Well, yeah, it's the effect of too
Don't
much
worry,
sun.
Tommy. We'll retake it. We'll use Cascadia as our base of operations, and after California falls, we will retake it.
I
from the
completely
Knox.
expect this to not be part of the ethno state, to be quite honest. It'll be sad to leave.
Not at first, but we'll. No. It'll be our Sudetenland. Like, it won't be a part of our Reich at first, but then we'll claim.
Right.
Not the Sudetenland, the
enclaves.
Rhineland. Reoccupy the Rhine.
Well, yeah, except that we expect more resistance than, like, remilitarizing our own homeland. Like, we're gonna have to kill a fuck ton of people in California if we try to incorporate it into Cascadia.
Yes.
Like, millions of people would
Yeah, I
die
have to become
for that kind of thing.
Durlwinger.
Well, it's not so much die, it's that they will die resisting arrest of
Leave,
being
yeah.
deported back to their own countries.
Yeah, basically.
Or they'll just start killing themselves, because that's another natural instinct here, apparently. You guys hear about this, like that show 13 Reasons, and then like the suicide outbreaks in California?
Are Hispanics killing themselves in California?
No, the few white people and then Asians are, of course.
The only people susceptible to
Yeah,
depression.
they'd like watch this show
For some
and then they
fucking
just kill
reason.
themselves.
Is that true? I thought Jews could get depression.
Oh, they do.
No, yeah, Jews, Semitic people can also get depression.
They
but,
acted out
like,
differently.
for some fucking reason, black and
They acted
Hispanic
out
people are
differently.
incapable
The
of
amount of
being
depression a Jew has is directly proportional to the amount of references to the Holocaust he makes in his daily life.
Basically, it's fundamentally true.
We need to write that in
It's
a
just
book
like-
somewhere. That needs to get published.
I can just imagine, just like
The
it's like
national-
early in the
national
morning,
law.
like he's woken up for like work. He's just kind of depressed, and he's sitting in a chair just waiting for his coffee. Then he's looking down. He has his elbows on his knees, and he's just looking down at the ground, and he just goes, "Those damn Germans."
My
Those
God.
Phil-
What they
filthy
think
goy.
we do all day. Another great example of projection by a certain group of people, because they think apparently that's all we think about all day is how the Jews did everything.
I know, and that's not even really true. The only time when we do that really is for ironic sakes. Like if a mistake happens or something bad happens, we'll ironically say the Jews did it. Oh, the Jews put a Lego under my foot or something.
Right, but they're so trapped in the
They
echo
did,
chamber
though.
they don't get the joke, which is what makes it more fun to do.
Mhm.
Personally, at least that's why I like doing it, because like you guys don't get it. You think like literally I want to kill you all. I have no interest in doing that. Oh my god, what a pain it would be.
Mhm.
All the oy veys I could not handle.
As you're shoving them into the ovens. Oi, they goyim. It's like, I'm just sick of listening to you. Honestly, could you leave? It's just too much work
Fine,
to
you've
kill you all.
manipulated me out of killing you. Now get out of here.
Mhm.
Call it Rotbard's
Jesus
list.
Christ. God bless those concentration camp workers. They really got the shittiest job.
Dude.
They had to keep
Could you
a bear
imagine?
and an eagle alive in a cage just with Jewish food.
Oh, good lord. Nothing but bagels.
No, the
They had to
Jews
make
were
sure
the
they
food.
didn't kill each other in the pool.
Oh, yeah, well.
You know that pool they built just to torture them with?
Mhm. It was full of harsh chemicals that agitated my asthma.
Oh, God.
That's what set Alex Jones off, his wife telling him that
Christ.
story. Good old Alex. Alex, if you listen to this, we like you, but now we're going to end the show. You are a meme that is just beyond belief.
But he encourages it. He's a self-aware meme.
To some extent. I don't know if he's acting
Yeah.
yet, because when he came out of that courthouse, just guns blaring back into conspiracy nonsense about human pig chimeras and how evil that was, because it's going to be so evil for me to get a new organ. Oh my god. Oof. That's going to be bad. You got to watch out, Alex. That was like, either he's a really great actor or like he gets riled up really easily and is just a nut who is funny to watch.
Because
when he gets
I think
pissed.
he's a great actor. I think he can get into this mindset. I mean, it's the same thing with when Colbert was doing the Colbert Report, acting as like a right wing kind of right wing centrist person. He
Jim Jones did that too really well, because as we now know, he was a communist who didn't believe in God.
mhm.
By the way, if you guys haven't read about that, go read about that. You want to talk about some red pills? He was trying to subvert the church structure from within and permeate the ideas of a working class revolution into the churchgoers in San Francisco in the 60s. Probably a pretty easy place to do that, but nonetheless.
You're preaching in California about communism and socialism, huh?
Huh, weird.
Yeah. Are you sure
Never
this is
heard that
necessary?
Right. Are you doing that on Berkeley's campus by any chance?
What? You're preaching anti-fascist ideals to Antifa? Huh.
Have they seen themselves in the mirror lately?
So, I heard a rumor. Is it true that one anti-fascist like guy and girl are just like actors doing like a thing?
Who, the Harry Pitts chick?
I don't know if she has hairy pits, but the girl looks like she has a pretty face and big boobs, and like it's a really really skinny white guy, and they always wear like the black masks, and there's like the meme of they were doing, if you want to shut down a fascist, here are a few chants you can do, or you could use whistles, and it shows like a quick clip of them like blowing whistles like and stuff like that. And
Dude, the levels of virtue signaling and like irony that's lost on everyone else because it's exceeded all rational bounds in the state create very special classes of people. If it turned out that they were being ironic, I wouldn't be totally shocked. If it turned out that no, they mean this, I would not be in the least bit shocked. Go to LA and talk to a woman and you will understand what I mean. Like, there's just something about the air here that has changed human psychology significantly. Luckily, I must live in like a pocket of air that's still like the rest of America. Go figure.
damn chemtrails changing the wind currents.
Best conspiracy, because if you believed in that, you'd always be entertained.
And I mean, when I used to be into a lot of more supernatural X stuff, it wasn't so much conspiracies, but I mean, and I have a lot of conspiracies in this category that I have that could possibly be true, but is not a pressing concern, such a pressing concern that I think it's either to the extent or as malevolent as the conspiracy makes it out to be. And in that category are things like chemtrails. I've seen evidence that yes, there probably are various weather and NASA things done in planes to try to conduct experiments with weather. Is it as malicious as people think? No, I don't think it's that malicious. Whether it's true or not, I don't think it's that huge of a deal. I mean, it'd be better knowing it than not knowing it, but at the same time, it's not like oh, we got to bring down the government because they're going to kill us all with these things. No, it's like
Right.
but at the same time, I don't like, oh, it's just a conspiracy, you're all nut jobs. I'm like, no, it's not that far-fetched to think that the government could be spraying things in
There
the
are a lot
air.
of conspiracies that end
They
up
do
being
it in
true.
local municipalities all the time to control mosquitoes in areas.
Yeah, I know,
that
and
have
that's
really
one
bad
of
mosquito
that's one of
problems.
the things like that I've even seen and that's openly admitted to. They have like trucks that just say go inside. This is bad for you to breathe. Stay inside for the next 15 minutes, and they go by, fill the air with pesticides, and then once it all settles, you can come back outside. And I think at that. Sorry, I have hiccups for a second. Let me just drink some water.
Now, granted, I could see the wisdom in wanting to kill off the denizens of Miami-Dade County, because when I lived there, I wanted to kill them off too, but I don't think that's the goal when they're spraying mosquito poisons in the air. Just like if they're conducting aerial research, they're probably not trying to kill people.
Hmm.
They're probably trying to discover some kind of technology or lesson that they can then develop out of that, some either way to make money for themselves or some way that the government can improve the lives of people so that the people don't hate it so much.
And in the case that it's like the most malicious thing, I don't think there's so much outside of white genocide with replacement and everything like that. I don't think there are like malicious campaigns like to outright kill the native population, like just without a sense of replacing them for economic reasons, such as the when they put syphilis into like all those bunch of black people in order to test the effects. Yeah, it's dubious. We already have these results and everything like that, but it's not like they're malicious in the sense that they want to kill every single person in their population with syphilis. It's more like, okay, you're doing a really kind of malicious but at the same time dumb experiment that you already have the results to. So I think that's
Well,
really the extent of it.
if they were truly trying population control on a global scale, they're missing the two biggest centers of population on Earth that are so much significantly larger than the United States. Like, why would they even be, maybe to experiment a little bit here, but like, if that was really the goal, I think they'd be spraying India and China.
Yeah, and that's another thing with like the genetically modified mosquitoes. I don't think it's intentional to try to spread Ebola and do everything like that. I think it was a genuine just like mistake in Brazil.
Right.
Or
Well,
no,
look at
it wasn't
how
Ebola. It
malaria
was
is-
Zika. That was it. Zika, not Ebola.
Malaria in East Asia has become drug resistant simply because people's ineffective measures to treat themselves when they had it has developed a population of malaria that is not susceptible at all to any known medication. That wasn't because the government was doing that. This was in the jungle that this was happening, where people were getting a little bit of antibiotics and spreading it out way too thin, thus creating an immune population of the parasite. Very interesting studies, if anyone's into that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like doom and gloom, so drug-resistant bacteria and parasites, I'm all about that.
Mm-hmm.
God sake.
I like laughing at black pills, what can I say?
I've made it a personal thing of mine to never become black pilled. I always hold this idea within myself that 132, as long as there is 132 people left of our race, then we can still come back. We can still we can still survive. All we need to do is be able to get 132 of our people in a self-sustaining like space station or spaceship. If we can do that, then we're good. That's why I can't ever completely blackpill myself and say, "Oh, it's hopeless. Oh, we'll never succeed." I hold that idea as just guiding torch.
Okay, a random question that's almost very very minutely even related to this. Have you guys ever heard the leftist meme about luxury gay space communism?
Yeah, I thought that was an alright meme.
According to my
I
socialist,
thought that was us making fun
my
of them.
socialist employee, that's actually their meme they started.
What? I thought that was us parodying
That's what I
them
told
and
him.
pointing out how retarded
I was like,
they
usually
are.
memes that come out of the left are garbage, and they just get made fun of extensively. But apparently the left is totally aware, for the first time ever, breaking news, this should be in the New York Times, that people think it's funny, and so they're playing up that effect of it.
Well, okay.
So wait,
You
they
guys realize you still look ridiculous when you're advocating gay luxury space communism.
I mean, that's almost kind of like that SNL bit that's like, oh, Tinder has 37 new gender options, also known as why the Democrats lost the election. And everyone lost their fucking shit because SNL made a funny about how crazy the left is.
Boy, they.
Like, they're totally right that's fucking the average American does not identify with this philosophy. There's 87 genders.
fucking homosexuality just absolutely destroying the gender relations. It's
And destroying the whole slippery slopes are just a myth. Because it's obvious to almost
Yeah, right.
everyone now what's going on.
It's obvious to me now.
I don't see how people can still use that because it's just a matter of logical justification. If you can justify why gay marriage should be legal, then you can also justify why gay sex should be legal. And if you justify why gay sex should be legal, then you can justify why trans people should be trans operations should be legal, then trans marriage and so on. I mean, it's just a legal progression.
Right. And it's almost like they ignore that then when they're looking at the right and going, oh my god, they're turning into Nazis. They're going to be Nazis soon. Oh my god.
I know.
It's like
it's so ridiculous. Trump is becoming just
Someone
a huge
pushed this
neocon,
off
yet
here.
they still treat him as like a Nazi.
I know. They call everyone right of like fucking Bernie Sanders a fascist though, so it's not. I saw someone on Twitter today who called Dave Rubin a fascist.
Boy, they.
You know, the last liberal guy, the guy who's like, I mean, he's anti-reactionary, I guess, you know, so I suppose you could categorize him under the anti-SJW left, I suppose, along with like Sargon or whatever the fuck. But like calling him fascist is a bit of a stretch, you know.
Well,
like,
people without names that are on the left who are like those kind of people that have like, logical consistency enough that they like go hold on, wait a minute. They're getting very turned off, at least in the experience anecdotally I'm having of them, of the way that the left is reacting right now.
But this wasn't just some rando bitch either. This is like a blue check
Of course.
who is like, Dave Rubin is a fascist. And it's like, well, you're a fucking idiot. Why don't you call people who call themselves fascists? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what company exactly I would say this in. But if I felt a reasonable amount of security in real life, I'd probably say, yeah, I could probably describe myself as something that falls under the broad umbrella of fascism. But if somebody says, no, I'm liberal, I just don't like you fucking idiots, they're probably not fascist. I mean, I don't know exactly what they are, but they're not fascist.
Weird. It's almost like people who disagree with you aren't all evil.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't Harry Potter.
Right, like nobody who doesn't openly admit to being fascist is fascist. No one is like secretly fascist. I don't know where this idea came from that like there are just millions and millions of fucking secret Nazis just waiting.
It was the
to
greatest
spring out.
plan ever
Nazis are
implemented in
usually-
World War II history. Mussolini, seeing the end of the Axis, organized a secret plan in order to ship all the fascist commissars over, not commissars, fascist officers into America to implement in generations from now a new, a new fascist empire. Who knows?
They thought we
Your
were gonna come
mother,
out
your
of
daughter,
America.
your children, your father, your sister, your dog, they could all be secretly from Italy.
Definitely your dog.
It's like people who are fascists usually tend to be fairly open about that. So I don't know what this fixation with accusing random people of being fascist
It's almost
is,
like the
but it's
fixation
fucking
over a
idiotic.
certain senator who would accuse everyone of being communist. And we still lament
well,
that
I
event in
mean-
American history, but we don't notice when it's coming out of our own mouth.
He wasn't even that wrong.
He was a good
You mean
boy,
John
he didn't do
McCain?
nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
yeah. There was a time when he wasn't so bad.
Fucking John McCain and Lindsey Graham. Please
I don't
leave.
know about
Then he
that.
crashed.
He's fucking idiotic. I wish those fucking goons
Well,
had
it's,
killed
the
him.
thing is, he thinks everything he does is justified based on the fact that he experienced that. Yes, it was probably a really unpleasant series of events that happened to you in that prison in Vietnam. But that doesn't mean you have to counter-signal everything all the time. Dude, calm down. You're like a Twitter personality at this point. Like, you need to just chill a little bit. You're going to go Mike Pence anime in a minute. Whoop.
He's gonna spurg.
And then just disappear.
Of the two, I want Lindsey Graham to leave the party the most. It's so clear that he's not a part of, our new GOP. He's not. He was barely even a part of the neoconservative movement. He was clearly like a left libertarian.
Yeah.
Lindsey
I'm
Graham
a
is so fucking
conservative because
terrible.
I
It's
believe
like, he's
everyone should have the right to be gay. What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
just- It's like, what? What the fuck does that even mean?
He's trying to explain his accent, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I do declare. It's like, motherfucker, get out of here.
The right,
You don't know you're
the
fucking
left are the
awesome.
real homophobes.
Yeah.
I just want to know why we assume.
That's probably some shit Paul Joseph Watson actually believes.
Well, while he's checking out the gay scene in Budapest.
Yes.
So we assume that gay people all speak with this really weird accent that's almost unique to them. They're born that way, but they're not. They don't have any kind of disability. Because I can think of other groups of humans that are born in, like, because of the circumstances of their birth, they are different than the rest of us, and they talk
Are
different.
you saying autism is a sexuality?
Well, I mean,
It
for me,
affects your
yeah,
it
is.
affects your sexual desire and the way you perform sex. It's
Yeah.
a sexuality.
Body pillows. Bingo. But we like that one. We just don't like the other one. You
Autism
guys
is
keep-
becoming an epidemic. I love it. Donald Trump still makes good sound bites.
Jesus Christ.
Keep pumping them full of vaccines, Goy. It won't blow up in our face at all.
Never. There'll never be any negative repercussions for anything.
Donald Trump
we
is-
do.
That's why
You
I
know
can't
this.
honestly buy the, like, evil Jewish conspiracy thing, because it's like, if they would see that there's, like, really bad results at the end of this, because they've seen that happen a lot in their history. Something else must be driving this.
What?
No.
Vaccines or
No, like the tendency of that certain group to reach a certain place in societies around the world and then do things that really aggravate the host populations that the host population ejects them.
Oh, they just can't help it. Like not everything that they not everything they do is part of some.
It's just
massive
their natural
conspiracy.
inclinations.
Sometimes
It's
their
it's
own
part of,
arrogance
you
and
know, just
neurosis. You can't. I don't know. I don't think you can reasonably reach some kind of conclusion that, like, literally everything that happens everywhere is coordinated from some kind of.
no
central
no
story.
one
Like,
no one
some
no
of
one
it is more
serious
organic
actually
than that.
alleges that.
Well, because no one seriously believes the
Yeah.
government can even do things of the basic nature they've told everyone about successfully. How would they pull this kind of thing off constantly? That doesn't make any sense.
It's all by accident.
As Bob
mostly.
Ross would say, happy accidents.
Yeah.
No, this isn't happy at all.
Oh man. Yeah, it's not happy, but. All right, boys, we fixed some.
That sounds like a
Just,
hilarious, just kind of YouTube meme, just like Bob Ross painting, and maybe he like stumbles a little in his brush moves, and he's like, "Oh no!" and it pans over, and like the painting is like, no, it's that painting underneath, you know, the Eiffel Tower, the one of like the white genocide. Women, he's like, "Oh no,
God.
this isn't a happy accident at all."
Rumor has it that outside of that show, he had a little bit of a temper. Supposedly. And I would not be shocked, though, because, like, no one's that happy. Come on.
And I'm not even sure about that guy's painting underneath the Eiffel Tower. I'm not sure if it's really supposed to be just like a fantasy of white genocide, or if it's supposed to be like kind of like a warning is the wrong word, just kind of like an elucidation of what's going on.
That could be very much it. He could just be very tuned into that and an artist that's unable to express it in any other way.
I've heard he's backed by the
He
Rothschilds.
painted
or
one of their
something.
ships for some boat race they were in. Is about the extent of the backing.
So I mean,
He's a living artist.
Okay.
I mean, he won't be
I just-
considered truly great
this is what
until
I've
he's
heard.
dead, right? Because that's the meme.
yeah, right.
Imagine if he's an artist who literally just paints nothing of like white women being killed by black guys. It's just like, just everywhere, just like on the side of the whole boat, just that, like on a coffee mug. That is just like, this is your form of art, huh? This is unique.
Yeah, it's like that dude Brio that lives in Florida that just paints those like stupid cartoony like people kissing thing, and it's huge to some people, and it's just like his kitsch little like niche he's found in the art world. This guy found white
How
genocide.
does one arrive there? On white genocide.
He's seeing the light.
Maybe he is trying to warn people about it. I don't know.
Maybe he doesn't even realize he's warning people about it. He's just kind of doing his thing and making money and going, hey.
What does this painting mean? It means white girls are getting killed. Is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. It's just happening by black guys. It's
I was at one
happening.
time. I think I was at a place called Baylor. And on that note, everyone have a great night. This has been the Nationalist Academy, episode 3. See you next time.